And welcome back once again to This Week in Football, presented by Geico. Well, the name George Martin, all by itself, is a rather common name. But former Giant George Martin is far from a common man because of the journey that he's undertaken. Here he is with Kim Jones.
At the local Marriott Hotel in Fort Smith, Arkansas, most guests will wait for the sun to rise before they start their day. But not 54-year-old George Martin. He's a man on a mission. You might best know Martin for his 14 years as a New York Giant, co-captain of the 1986 Super Bowl champions, the holder of several defensive NFL records. But George Martin's legacy ultimately might lie in the endeavor he is currently undertaking. This past September, he started a journey for 9/11. George took a leave of absence from his job, hired a small crew including a road manager and security for traffic safety, and he began walking from the George Washington Bridge toward the Golden Gate Bridge, all to raise money and awareness for 9/11 first responders and volunteers who are now suffering from a host of respiratory and other illnesses. He hopes to raise $10 million for their medical care, and he wants to let the whole country know that the events of 9/11 continue to take lives to this day. So just about every morning, George drives to the spot where he left off the day before and continues to walk across the United States. I caught up with George about 1/3 of the way into his journey. He's gone through 18 pairs of sneakers. He's lost 32 pounds. And he seems just as determined as he was when he left New York.
I'd love to hear from you. Why do this?
I think it's just general patriotism, general charity, general humanity, having a desire to help those that are less fortunate. And when you look at the plight of those first responders or rescue and recovery people, your heart can't help but going out to them when they've either not had medical coverage or they've exhausted their medical coverage. And the one quote that I'll never forget is the father who says, I have to make a choice between getting medical attention for myself and sustaining my life or putting food on the table. Now, that's a pretty heck of a choice you have to give heroes. So that's how we came up with the Journey for 9/11. We got to help those individuals.
It strikes me, George, that a whole bunch of people who might not remember you sacking John Elway in Super Bowl 21 will remember you walking across the country and raising this money.
It's so, we were walking down a back road in Arkansas a couple of days ago, and this young little kid who was 9 years old came out. He had his cowboy hat on, he had a big cowboy belt, and his name was Travis. And his dad came out, and his mom and his sister, and he says, my son Travis wants your autograph. And I said, how old are you, Travis? He says, 9 years old. Now, he didn't know me, obviously, as a football player. He knew me only as a guy who's a former athlete who's walking across the country. And he says, you're a hero of mine. And his dad looked up and to his son and said, you know what, son? He says, you're looking at history right now. So it puts George Martin in a whole different context. And it's not has anything to do with athletics. It has to do with, as I said earlier, humanity.
You were seeing a slice of Americana, a big slice, maybe
absolutely.
the whole pie.
Up close and personal.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful. It's boy, I tell you, you know, people have these stereotypes and I'm guilty of that. And I'm so glad that I'm wrong. I mean, you walk through the heartland of the country and you don't wonder anymore why they call it the heartland. It really is the heartland. The people are warm, inviting, embracing, and you could never duplicate this experience again. You just couldn't. There have been so many people who've come up to us and said, hey, I had a friend, I had a relative, I had a buddy, or I myself was there, worked on the dig. There's a connection to the events of 9/11 that I think is universal.
And as you were giving that answer, a truck pulled up and handed Lee some money for the cause.
See, Kim, it happens every day, day after day, and it's just like, it's such an encouragement, it just validates that what we're doing has such a positive impact, and I will never, ever regret this undertaking. As a matter of fact, I tell my staff all the time, I say, we're ambassadors of 9/11, and for that, we should be honored to be a part of it.
We'll continue with George Martin after this commercial break and talk about what it means to be a part of Big Blue, past and present.
Welcome back once again to This Week in Football, presented by Geico. Well, as the New York Giants continue their march towards Phoenix in Super Bowl 42, former Giant George Martin continues his march across the country, all the while keeping a close eye on his former team, enjoying their moments while he relives some of his great moments with the team. Here's part 2 of Kim Jones with George Martin.
George Martin's journey will take him through 15 states and the District of Columbia. As we began to approach the Oklahoma border, the discussion inevitably turned to football. Martin's career with the New York Giants had a lot to do with making him the man he is today.
Have the Giants surprised you?
Pleasantly so, yes. But that, to me, is typical Tom Coughlin. If you know Tom and you know what a committed, dedicated coach he is, and he's not just an X's and O's guy. When he's talking to these guys, he's talking to them about their character and building their character on and off the field. So I'm pleasantly surprised, and kudos to them as far as they've gotten, and I hope that they go all the way. But it's not a surprise because it's a Tom Coughlin coach team. Football, the New York Giants, and that whole organization in general had given me perspective. And I think it was because of that it's allowed me to emerge and say, you know, no matter how enormous the situation, that a single individual can make a difference. And I think I owe a lot to the Giant organization without question. Bill Parcells, who's helped with developing the person that you see before you.
Do you still have memories of Bill Parcells' training camps? Or should I have said nightmares?
Yeah, nightmares. Are you kidding me? I'll have those until the day I die, unfortunately.
Really?
Of course. Oh, yes.
Give us a couple. What stands out the most?
Boy, I'm going to need therapy after this. When I first started training camps, they didn't have water breaks. You couldn't drink water. There was no limitations on physical contact. You could have 3-a-days, which we had under Perkins. We never wore shorts in training camp. And now you can't hit 2 successive days. We'd hit for 3 months, you know. It's just a whole different mentality now. And I think it's improved for the better, don't get me wrong. I'm saying this more out of envy than anything else. Bill Parcells was pretty demanding, and I've gotten reamed out as a team captain. You know, you're always the one whose responsibility falls on your shoulders. So I've gotten reamed out more than I'd like to recall.
That 86 Giants team remains a pretty close-knit group. Do you hear from a lot of those guys?
All the time, almost every day. As a matter of fact, the 3 captains of that 86 Super Bowl team were myself, Phil Simms, and Harry Carson, all of which are board members of A Journey for 9/11.
Well, you don't do better than Harry Carson as a fellow co-captain, do you?
Oh, man, I tell you, that's the top shelf right there.
And now a Hall of Famer.
And now a Hall of Famer. Oh, boy, I remember when I went to Ohio for his induction 2 years ago, and I stayed in Cleveland, and I was walking around the city of Cleveland the day before the induction, and that's where I had the epiphany that it's time to fulfill my lifelong desire of walking across the country, and that's when it began to take shape.
It was there.
It was there. That's correct.
As we took our last steps in Arkansas and our first ones in Oklahoma, George Martin was welcomed by local firefighters and law enforcement.
I give up, okay? You got me. How you guys doing? George Martin.
My 12-mile part of this journey was over, but George could take only a few minutes to celebrate and spread the word before he continued with his journey.
Gentlemen, thanks again. We appreciate it. You guys will see us along the way, I'm sure.
Because George Martin has promises to keep, and he's got miles to go before he can sleep.
Well, it's an absolutely great story. The journey continues for George Martin, and you can be a part of it. Go to ajourneyfor911.com or call 1-866-808-2553 to donate to the cause. All right, Kim Jones with me now. You were along for that. What was it like experiencing the support that he got firsthand?
It was remarkable, Bob. When we were on a strip of road where there were businesses, small businesses, the people opened their doors and waved and yelled, "Thanks, George." Some of the truck drivers who have been particularly supportive, making sure he has that shoulder to walk on, were honking out of support. A couple cars stopped and just handed a $5 or $10 bill to one of his support people. So it was remarkable to see the fact that people are supporting him. And as he said to me, we as New Yorkers think people have forgotten about 9/11 as we go farther away from New York,
right.
He is finding that is not the case.
Well, it's interesting. What is also interesting to note is the fact that he talks about all the hard hitting they did when he was playing. I'm surprised he's held up as well as he has.
Yeah, and he held up through 14 NFL seasons, not a serious injury, never a surgery. That is one of the reasons he's able to do this. We hear so many stories of retired NFL players not doing so well physically. He's in remarkable shape.
All right, what's the ballpark on George when he wraps this all up?
Well, sometime this spring. He is getting an honorary doctorate at Fairleigh Dickinson University in May. He will certainly be there for that. Whether the journey is finished at that point, he's not sure, but he will finish. He is absolutely certain to finish, and they think the pace might pick up as springtime comes, and it'll be remarkable as he goes through the state of California.
All right, Kim, great story. Thanks. We'll take a break. Here's what's next.